Hi, gorgeous souls, and welcome to our Solar Conversation number 53, which was planned for last Wednesday. Now it's happening today. But as I learned from my beautiful friend, Joanna Hunter, today, as she reminded me that time is just an illusion and something that we as humans have made up. Gosh, I look like a ghost today. It's the bright light. Can I turn? Will I turn a bit for you? There we go. You can see the gorgeous artwork my boys made for me in the background. So last week, I asked in my Solid Living with Annika group, if you could ask me anything, just like, what would it be? Like, nothing off the table, ask me anything that comes to mind. What would you like to hear from me? What would you like to learn from me? And one of the comments was, how do you handle fear? And that was really interesting for me, because on the first thought, like, fear is not really connected with living a soul-led life, right? You're just doing the things that feel good inside. Well, if you actually do them, if you actually commit to a soul-led life and go into that space, your soul will bring you to the edge. Your soul will constantly stretch you, bring you out of your comfort zone, bring you to the edges of the experience as you have known it, of the things that you already know, and you will experience new things. And with experiencing new things, going into the unknown, doing things that you have never done before, that's something that brings you out of your comfort zone, and that brings fear with it. It's like we as human beings are so trained on staying inside of our comfort zone and staying with the things that we have always done, and everything new triggers us. Like everything new brings fear into our system. And so when that question came up, I'm sorry, I hope you can hear me properly. The washing machine is running in the background, and it was really quiet, and now it's really loud. So I'm just trying to speak louder. I'm trying to speak up. I just had caught a cold last week after being really, really exhausted, being up with the baby. So yes, stretching out and trying new things and having new experiences brings fear with it. It brings fear of the unknown. It brings a lot of fear about, like, what will others say about me? What will this bring into my experience? I have no clue what it will be like. Oh, thank you, Melina. Melina just said, can hear you perfectly. So thank you so much for letting me know. And so that brings fear with it. And so we need to talk about, like, how do you handle fear? How do you handle that fear that comes up with living from a soul-led place, letting your soul lead in your life? And so what came up for me first is the moment I catch that I have fear, that I'm fearing something happening, I say it out loud. It doesn't matter if there's somebody around me who can, like, who hears it or not, but I say out loud, oh my God, I'm fearful of this happening, or I fear that if I do this thing, whatever it is that my soul is asking me to do, that something else happens. And so fear normally comes from the unknown, something that hasn't happened yet, where we don't know even what's gonna happen. And so that's the fear that comes up. And so by naming the fear and getting really clear on what it is we are fearful about, we can examine then, is this true? Is this actually something that could happen, right? Is this something that is actually a possibility? And most of the time we will come up with, like, actually no, that's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. And so the fear calms down again. Remember, in a very, very fearful state, I even need to take a couple of breaths before I can even come to the point that I'm like, oh my God, I'm filled with fear, and this is what I'm fearing, right? then when we have said out loud what it is we're fearing, I let myself go there. I'm like, what is the absolute worst that can happen? What is the absolute worst that can happen? And then I look at the worst case scenario, not in a fearful way, but in a way that I'm like, if that happens, I will be actually okay. Every single time, even when the worst case scenario is that I'm gonna like die, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. There's nothing to fear really once you get behind the point of like, look, even if my body doesn't make it, me, what forms me, my consciousness, my soul, will still be okay. And that helps me immensely. Like when fear comes up, I go like, okay, what's the worst case scenario? What is the worst case scenario? And then I normally quickly get to the point where I say like, I will be okay with that. Everything is fine. I don't have to fear anything, really. Another thing, what I do is when fear comes up, I pull myself back into the present moment. I go like, is this really relevant right now to my experience right now? I'm like, I'm sitting here, I'm having my camera running, I look around me and I look at the things that I have, like I have my knitting stuff here and I have my cup of tea here, and like I'm everything is fine right now. There is no need for me to stay in that fearful place. And so coming back into the present moment, in most cases, if you're not chased by a bear in that very moment, or if nobody is physically violating, like is physically or emotionally abusing you in that very moment, you're not in danger. And so the fear can be acknowledged and looked at and then actually pass through. Another thing that I want to say is that fear will never go away. Like getting fearless is an expectation onto yourself. Like being fearless is an expectation onto yourself that will never happen. It will never happen, and you can quote me on this, like it will, no matter how far along you are on your spiritual journey, how much you have grown and changed and whatever, there will always be things that trigger fear. Now the washing machine is ready. I can hang up my washing after this, yay! I'm just joking. It's not one of my favorite tasks, to be honest. But yeah, so like, where was I? Oh no, it will never go away. So you will always have to handle fear, and you have to find a way to work with it together. That might mean if you're somebody who gets really caught up in the worst case scenario, you can prepare for this. You can take fear by the hand and say, thank you so much for being here. I know you just want to keep me safe. Let's work out a way how we can go forward together, hand in hand, so I can actually move forward with feeling the fear. It's like, feel the fear and do it anyway. There's a book. The first time I heard it say somebody is Lisa Nichols said it, but I know there's a book from the 1980s something that is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And this is so important. You need to find ways how to handle your fears that are coming up. And for me, in my case, how I handle fear personally is I look it in the eye and I actually have a conversation. I sit down and I say like, okay, what's the worst case scenario? And I sometimes do this with Dennis together. And most of the time it's just me with my journal, or me having a conversation in my head going like, okay, you are in fear mode right now. What do you need to get back into love mode? What do you need to get back into relaxation? What do you need, like, what does need to be addressed? What are you fearing actually? Yesterday, I said to Dennis, like, I'm really afraid that Lucan, who is a very sensitive sweet, lovely little boy will be broken in school. This is like an actual fear that I have. I'm so fearful of him being bullied, just because he's different. He is different than the other children. He had a very different experience so far in life, with growing up in Ireland and now being in Germany. And so, like, this is quite a valid fear, you know. And the only thing that Dana said, like, you know, we will notice if something is wrong when he's in school and he comes home. He will tell us. I trust in that. And then, when that is the case, we can address it. And this comes back to being really in the moment, right? I heighten my awareness. I watch. I ask questions. I talk with him about the experience he has in school and stuff like that. And then I can address it if something comes up. And that's all my fear needed. It's like, oh yeah, I'll be capable of handling this if something like this happens. And so the fear went through, passed away, and will come up again. And I will handle it again. And this is how I handle fear. I just face it straight on, and as soon as I catch it. Sometimes I'm in fear and I have no clue that it's even there. I just act out of fear. And it's the coming back to love and like acting out of love. That's how I handle fear. I give it a space in my life because I think it's valid, and sometimes we need to listen to our fears too, because sometimes we're really in danger. But in our modern life, it's very little times the case that we are in actual danger of like losing our life or like having serious damage done to us. So this is how I handle fear. I hope I answered your question. If you have any more questions around this, if you need clarification, if there is something you want me to specify or go deeper into, pop it into the comments. And that's it from me for today. I'm going to post this in the Soul-Led Living group as well, so the beautiful woman who asked these questions can see this too. And I'm gonna see you tomorrow for Soul-Led Conversation number 54. I'm sending you so much love and light. I want you to remember that you're loved, you are loved, you're guided, you're supported. The universe has your back and everything is happening for you, even when the fear is coming up. That is something that is happening for you, so you can gain more awareness and be more present in this very moment. Now, I'm gonna go and be present with my laundry, and I'm gonna see you tomorrow. Take care, my loves. Mwah.